All right, we are live. Um, Joined today by Haas coming in from a bubble spaceship in the future. He's
That's
joining us.
correct. Joining you from a bubble tree spaceship, um, and having a good time.
So we'll get into our chosen movie in a bit. But what else you've been watching or thinking about lately?
What have I been watching? I watched a few different things recently, but I've been watching Chuck. You remember Chuck, the TV show?
Was that like on USA or TBS or something?
No, no, no. It was network NBC, I think.
No,
But
I don't think I remember it. It sounds
okay.
familiar, but I don't
So it's
know.
on HBO Max now. It used to be on Netflix. And so it is about a guy who works for the Geek Squad at Best Buy, but a fictionalized version, who ends up becoming like a super spy.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've never seen this, but I looked it up. I recognize the poster.
Yeah, so I watched it like when it first came out, but I went on my mission like halfway through the first season. So I was liking it. But then my brothers kept watching it and they like loved it. So I caught up on it on streaming when it like was finally finished and stuff. But my brother actually worked at a Geek Squad while this was airing, so it was kind of like uh, appropriate for him. But anyway, it's kind of like one of the first nostalgia humor shows because like it's there's tons of references to like Dune and Star Wars and James Bond and like kind of like 80s 70s 80s nostalgia humor, which is kind
Yeah,
of like the trope now.
because he's a geek, right? Because he's a geek that works at the
Right.
geek squad.
Right. So him and his friend like dress up like a sandworm um for Halloween and stuff like that. But like it's interesting to watch now just that trope is like so played out, like I don't know, just nostalgia humor in general, but it's still kind of a good show.
Hmm. That's cool. Yeah, I never saw that. Um, but yeah, I can tell just from the pictures and stuff what the vibe was. You know that show Ozark?
Yeah.
I don't think it's very good. Like it it came on strong.
As I call it, Breaking Bad 2.
Yeah, Breaking Bad, Missouri or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I mean it's kind of like Breaking Bad, but it doesn't have much of the same. Breaking Bad had this really strong comedy thread throughout it.
Right, right. There was kind of more to it than just drug drama,
Yeah,
soap opera.
but Ozark, yeah, they're always upping the ante on like how depressing they can be. Yeah, I don't think it's very good. I guess I watched first season was like all right, but even then I kind of knew what I was that it wasn't that good. But and just through inertia, I've kept going. Um, but I've struggled to even get through like the first two episodes of the new one, and I don't think I'll get much further. But yeah, so I think they're kind of, and I've seen a little bit of that sentiment around. So I mean, I'm guessing maybe they have another season in the works, but then they'll be done. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I watched the first season, but I don't think I finished just because it was like it's too violent for me. I don't like things that are too violent.
Yeah.
I'm like a baby. But no, it was just like I kind of was like interested and intrigued at the beginning, but then when they kind of like settled into the Ozarks, I was kind of like, "Oh, so this is just going to be like one of those shows that doesn't ever go anywhere."
Yeah.
And so I was
Yeah.
like,
And
"I'm not
every
interested."
and it gets compared to Breaking Bad all the time, but Breaking Bad was like a time bomb where you knew how it had to end, and you were just going to see how it gets there. But this Ozark could just kind of go on forever. It could meander for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I kind of like got into some of the stuff and I was just like, I don't care about any of this.
Hmm.
So I just stopped watching.
Yeah.
I watched a weird movie. Um it was a documentary about Elliott Smith.
Oh, really?
Are you familiar?
Yeah, very much so.
Oh,
I'll let you.
really?
Yeah, tell me about the documentary. But so Elliott Smith's last live performance was at the University of Utah, and it was free. It was part of like I think it was
Uh
like
huh.
a back to school sort of thing. And so I was there, and he was not doing well. He was, um, I don't know if it was drugs or just his own uh, depression or whatever. But he kept having to stop 2 or 3 times. He had to stop some songs and like start them over, and he was just sort of like, you could tell he was mad, and it was not. I mean, when it was good, it was good. I mean, he's a legend, um, but yeah, it was interesting to see. And then not long after that, it was when he was murdered by his girlfriend.
Jeez. Okay. So that's interesting because, like,
And by the way, that's a joke. By I mean, I don't, the theory that he was murdered by his girlfriend, but
well, I thought it was generally accepted it was a suicide, but yeah.
yeah,
Um. Okay, that's interesting because like I've been talking about this to people and like everyone's like, who? And I'm like, Elliott Smith. You like he was like a big kind of indie rock staple, like or like indie, not indie rock, but like indie
yeah,
staple of like, I feel like early millennial time period.
yeah. I don't know how anyone got out of the 2000s without if you were at least 15 by year 2000, or around that age. Like, I don't know how you would not have known of him.
Right. I was younger, but like I had heard of him actually because of Royal Tannenbaums. Um,
Yeah, his song is in the scene when what
in
is
the
it?
suicide scene.
Yeah, Richie's cutting his arms. So the thing about one sort of thing I think about all the time with people like Elliott Smith is if his songs had just been if there'd just been low effort re-recordings by popular artists, he's got like 10 songs that would have been number one hits. Like there it's um
And he was kind of like prolific. Like he
yeah,
produced
he
a lot.
incredibly prolific, and um just the baseline songwriting ability was incredibly high. Like um there's like popular artists who will have like one or two truly good songs, and then you get someone like Elliott Smith who has like songs he'll never release that are better than the best things written by like a big pop star.
Okay. Yeah. What's funny, you're probably a bigger fan than me. I never saw him live or anything, and I I kind of dug into his stuff a little bit, but and kind of enjoyed it, but I never really like went back and like listened to kind of his early songs or like Heat Miser or any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw the documentary and I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of know the story, but I'd like to know more. Like, so I started watching it, and anyway, I thought it was interesting. First of all, just how old he was, which I didn't realize, but I mean, it makes sense. But like, it just seems weird because I kind of identified him as almost like a millennial icon, but he's firmly Gen X, like of a guy, which makes sense that slightly older people are producing music that teenagers are listening to, right?
Yeah, actually,
But
yeah, I mean, I'm guessing, yeah, he was born. If he was alive, he'd be in his 50s now or something.
he was born in '69.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like I didn't have like his whole timeline in mind. I just knew he had kind of some big songs around like early 2000s, and so I was like, I just hadn't really put that together, but I just thought it was weird that like, and then I saw like some interviews of him, and he's like very kind of brooding emo guy, and it's just weird to think of like, so like he's the same age as my father-in-law, and I'm like, it would be weird to think of my father-in-law being like a sensitive brooding emo guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I was reading about him somewhat recently. Oh, it was actually about was it a murder? Was it a suicide? Because as a suicide, it was a very strange suicide because I didn't he stab himself in the chest, which is, very
Yeah,
unusual.
stabbed himself in the heart, which would kind of be hard to do,
Yeah.
but
And
like
very
I guess
unusual.
samurai did it, I don't know.
So, yeah. So there was a lot of speculation that it was a murder. So I was going back and kind of digging into that, seeing how credible that was, and uh, which no one really seems to accept that. But I was reading, I think it was one of his girlfriends or his friends. It might have been, it was someone famous. I don't want to get the name wrong, but it was someone famous from like a big indie band. And they're like, you guys don't understand how tortured this guy was. They're like, we were hanging out with him on tour or something. And he was, uh, he'd gotten hold of, I think it was Adderall. And he was taking like 10x the like maximum recommended dose, just because, like, just to like feel something sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. He
So he
was
was, yeah.
he was kind of, yeah, that was kind of his vibe. But yeah, so in the documentary they kind of cover how like he started playing music. He was kind of into like punk music in the early 90s, and essentially was in like a punk band, and then started doing solo projects where he would kind of sing whatever he wanted because he was kind of having a fallout with his bandmates. And he ended up doing kind of this singer songwriter stuff that was kind of like totally different.
Hmm.
And what I was thinking, I was like, is this the beginning of like emo music or like? But it's not. I looked into it further, but it's kind of in that same time period. There were also like actual like emo punk bands, but
Yeah, I mean, obviously, incredibly influential for sad guys with guitars.
yeah,
Um,
sad indie musicians is very much like his. Yeah, like he definitely was influential, but not necessarily on straight to like emo. But it was kind of more like, yeah, sensitive guitar man.
yeah, I mean, I don't talk to people that much these days about music, but um, so you're saying, I'm not. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised to hear that people you encounter don't know who he is, but to me, he seems like a very important figure in, like, if you like sort of musical literacy or something, popular music literacy. Um,
Yeah, he's like someone that other musicians knew about.
yeah, they all would say he's very, like, one of the best. So I mean, if anyone's listening to this is not familiar, you got to go back and at least become familiar with his like 5 to 10 best, or even just his most popular songs. Like, you got to know him.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I think he won an Oscar for,
Yeah, so
yeah,
apparently that was like a big changing point in his life that they covered in the documentary. He won an Oscar for Good Will Hunting, his song in that.
yeah.
And
Did it make his life worse?
yeah, because basically he was super introvert and didn't like the attention and just kind of wanted to produce his art, and
Mm.
then all these people, he had to like go on tours to talk about being nominated for an Oscar. And then I actually don't know if he won or just was nominated. I can't remember, but
Oh yeah, I think maybe he didn't win, but he performed at the Oscars, because like
he performed.
usually they get like all the nominees to perform.
And that kind of like catapulted his status where he was kind of just a local Portland musician and kind of West Coast type of stuff, but then kind of was catapulted and started touring. And yeah,
Well, oh, so yeah, I'm glad I'm going to watch this documentary then. Where is it?
it's on Prime.
Oh, okay, okay, cool. Um, yeah, I was not planning on talking about Elliott Smith today, but I'm glad that came up, and I'll definitely watch that.
Yeah, yeah. So do we go to the main event?
Okay, yeah. From here, we will. Uh, Crap. I had a joke. I can't remember it now. Well, I mean, I'll just edit it to make it sound like I didn't forget it. But
All right. Do you want me to laugh? All right. 1, 2, 3. Great joke.
yeah. Crap. I can't remember it. Anyway, yeah. Yeah. Let's jump into 2006. That's when it came out, right?
Yeah. Should I do my 2006 spiel, or or should I not talk about 2006?
Do your 2006 spiel, but yeah. So now we'll jump into Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain.
You pulled me through time. Don't worry. We're almost there.
prisons for our souls.
I'm not afraid anymore, Tommy.
All flesh decays. Death turns all to ash. And thus, death frees every soul.
Together we will live forever.
Yeah, so The Fountain.
Yeah, tell me, I know you're a 2006 truther.
Yes.
Now, I think the more conventional camp is the one I'm in, which is a 2007, Team 2007, but make your case for
Well,
2006.
and to be honest, I would kind of say 2005, 2006, 2007, take the bests of all those years. It was like a great time period for movies, in my opinion. So, because I'm fond of many 2007s as well, but I think 2006 is the middle of that section. So, I would kind of include anything within a year of that date. But anyway, first of all, The Fountain is my favorite movie. I can basically say that. I mean, I kind of have a top 5 or so that I just like equally, but The Fountain is probably my number 1 if I had to pick one. So that being said, I may be a little biased, but 2006 has 2 of my favorite movies, technically like 2 of my top 5s. So The Fountain is one. The Fall, which is a very indie movie, which I won't go into, but look it up. The Fall, 2006. And then I'll run through the list really fast, and all of these I like. So Black Snake Moan, Apocalypto, Children of Men, The Departed, The Prestige, The Illusionist, Casino Royale, Little Miss Sunshine, Inside Man, Blood Diamond, Pan's Labyrinth, Once, 300, Marie Antoinette, Curse of the Golden Flower, A Scanner Darkly, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, Lady in the Water, Accepted, She's the Man, great comedy, Idiocracy, Talladega Nights, Nacho Libre, Borat, and then American Dreams, Dreams with a Z, another very unknown film.
I have to admit, I haven't actually seen a lot of those.
Okay.
Or no, and some of the ones I have seen, I saw them in a very passive setting.
But yeah, we could talk about any of those really. Like there's plenty to talk about on a lot of those, but especially like those first 4 I listed, The Fountain, The Fall, Black Snake Moan, and Apocalypto. Those are probably like top 10, top 20 movies for me.
I'd plan to do it's Apocalypto, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah,
I'd plan to do that one here at some point.
Okay. Yeah, I could talk about that.
Did Mel Gibson direct that?
Yes. After Passion.
Okay. But that's that list essentially is your case for 2006.
That's my case. That's my case for 2006. I understand that some of them are probably more personal choices to me. Like these aren't necessarily like, Oscar type movies necessarily, but like even like Pan's Labyrinth, that's a great movie,
Mm-hmm.
And then Curse of the Golden Flower, no one has seen, but it's a Chinese movie, martial arts epic. That's basically Hamlet, but Chinese.
Yeah, there's a lot I have not seen. I feel inadequate hearing the list. I'm probably susceptible to like following crowds a bit, which is why I've always thought like 99 and 2007 were such good years, because I guess I only can see so much, and so I do rely on the filter of especially back then when social media was not like you didn't have a community of trusted dudes necessarily. You'd kind of just
dudes were less trustworthy back then.
Well, there were probably really good forums, but I was not. I remember what forums I was on, and they were not that good. It was. If I'd listened to those guys, I'd be watching really lame movies. But
you know what must be part of it for me too is that's kind of like when torrenting was really big for movies.
Oh, so you were just so the cost the
yeah
because
I just downloaded all of these,
Yeah. If I think I'm a little older, even I'm just a couple years older, but even just a little younger, I probably would have been that much more up on like torrenting and stuff like that.
Right. I would have been 18 in 2006. So yeah.
Yeah, and I was sequestered from all media during that time.
Hmm. Correct.
Okay, so so the Fountain. I'll go first on the Fountain because
Yeah, you
I
go.
just watched it on your recommendation.
Wait, should I do a synopsis of the plot? I have a very short one. Or do
Sure.
you want to?
Yeah, no, go for it.
So my synopsis for the plot, and it was kind of so I saw a preview for it, and I should try to find the trailer, but I had heard about it, and then I was like, I have to see that movie. Like I was like, this sounds like the coolest movie ever. Just the premise was sold me on it. So it's a love story. It's a sci-fi epic, but it's a love story that takes place in 3 different time periods. Essentially, you can think of them as almost like 500 years apart each. So it's present day, um, conquistador, uh, kind of Central America, 1500s ish, and then kind of way out in the future with a bubble tree spaceship. And so it's 3 love stories with the same 2 essentially characters, but same 2 actors in each time period, and yeah, that's it.
It's a funny thing that you were kind of describing like what genre it might fit into,
Yeah.
and it doesn't fit neatly into anything. So it's pretty funny. I was looking at the Wikipedia. Here's how they describe it: The Fountain is a 2006 American epic magical realism romantic drama film.
Oh, that old
Yeah, that well-worn category of epic magical realism romantic drama.
I know that category well.
Yeah, they should have that at the Oscars.
Best epic romantic.
Best epic magical realism romantic drama film.
Yeah. Can I say something else? Yeah, I'm on a podcast. I can say it.
You can say anything.
So part of for preparation of this, I did rewatch the making of, which I had seen previously, but I wanted to kind of refresh to make sure I knew the specifics.
Mm-hmm.
But the origin of it was Darren Aronofsky and Jared Leto went in when they were showing off their little film. They went and saw a screening of The Matrix together, and when they saw it, he was basically like, "I need to make a sci-fi movie that is similar to how like Matrix kind of like had kind of condensed all sci-fi genres into kind of one, and like had all kinds of stuff in it and kind of changed the game. He wanted to kind of make a totally different and distinct sci-fi movie, and that's what this was born out of. Was a competitor to the Matrix, which is kind of interesting to think about.
That is interesting, and it's certainly distinct. Like I had a hard time thinking of it while watching it as sci-fi.
For sure, yeah. Well, there's no spaceships unless you count the bubble.
Yeah.
There's no technology. There's no, well, kind of, unless you count the botanical compound. But yeah, it's very light on the like traditional sci-fi side of things.
Yeah, so it is a sci-fi in the he's in this lab, he's trying to do this thing that's never been done, which is immortality, and spoiler, I think he succeeds, right? Because he
kind of.
So
or does he?
Yeah, I guess my very literal reading is that he does, but so it's like sci-fi in that sense. He's inventing new science, and the spaceship is the bubble is a spaceship. I saw some comment from Aronofsky who he said something like, he's like, I didn't want buttons. Every spaceship looks like some flying truck or something like that, and it has all these buttons and all these lights, and like I wanted this to be a different spaceship. And then he also said he was surprised that people didn't realize it was supposed to be a spaceship.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that part in the making of as well. It's kind of like they um yeah, it's explicitly a spaceship, but
I was one of those
it
people
doesn't
that
really read like it
yeah,
in the film.
I wasn't processing it that way. I was like thinking that it was just in in his imagination or something, that or there was
Mhm.
the astral realm or something. I didn't think of it as a literal space. I didn't realize it was actually supposed to be that.
Well, and I think you can read it both ways and it's okay.
Mm,
And that's a big thing with this film is and a lot of the films I like is I don't necessarily like films where they're like this is exactly what you're supposed to think and feel about this film at the end of it.
yeah,
So like Marvel, we can pick on Marvel, but like Marvel's very much like that. Like it's like, well, you know, the villain was bad, but he did have, a real thing there. And so that's, I guess I can think like they kind of try to like force this like narrative on you where it's like, well, maybe the villain had a point after all, but he was just a villain, so we had to kill him. And like um but like with Aronofsky's films and a lot of films that I like, you kind of you finish the film and you're like, what?
yeah,
And you but it's accompanied with you kind of start thinking about it for a little bit. Like they don't just disappear.
yeah. And I might be having this conversation too soon after having watched
I
it.
think
Actually,
so.
I think I watched it on today's a Thursday, and I think I watched it on a Tuesday. On Tuesday, so it definitely first. I'll give kind of my summary on the experience of watching it, which is um, most the first way through, I felt like I was following it, but also having a hard time. There was definitely question marks, like, and I'm probably, I'm probably pretty literal brained sometimes, and I was kind of thinking like, okay, so like, is this the same guy? Does he exist over these three different time periods, or um, once she mentions the book, I'm thinking, okay, well, the conquistador is fake. He's existing just in the form of the book. So I
Yeah,
kind of got
that gets blown up at the end, that idea,
oh,
in a certain way.
you'll have to explain to me how, because I
Okay.
didn't realize. But that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, okay, the past is just the book, his wife's book. Okay, that makes sense. I can follow that. And then the present is the present. Um, but then I didn't know what was going on because I didn't even really realize it was a spaceship. I didn't realize he was in space trying to get to
Where did you
Jibolba,
think he was?
at like the astral realm. Like I thought he was
Yeah.
like I thought it was somewhere he like Nirvana sort of thing. He'd gotten there through meditation or something. That's kind of all I thought it was. I thought it was in his mind. So
Well,
I
yeah, and I guess you don't really know where he's going at the beginning. You see this spaceship thing moving through space, weird
yeah
looking space, and you're like, what is this? Like, why is he doing Tai Chi in the stars?
yeah I was wondering why like I was wondering actually specifically. I have that in my notes about Tai Chi. Like why why this particular like Chinese I guess it's a martial art, or not a martial art, but
It is.
was it martial? It's a
It is.
okay.
Actual Tai Chi is. I could talk. Let's switch and talk about Chinese martial arts.
Yeah, let's do that. This is the Granite Mountain Martial Tai Chi podcast.
No, I'm gonna do that on Brett's podcast. But
But yeah, what's does Tai Chi just film well, or is there a reason he's doing that?
I think yeah, I think part of it is there's supposed to be a bit of confusion as to what's going on. Like that's kind of part of the story because essentially since there's three storylines, there's actually not that much content to the actual stories themselves because it's like three stories cut up in the
Mm-hmm.
normal amount of a movie. And so but essentially the three stories are somewhat dependent on the other two stories in order to be fulfilled. And so like you don't really know what's going on at the beginning, and then at the end all the three stories have their climaxes right at the same time.
Mm.
And so which is kind of like an interesting narrative device as well. Like I don't know how many movies do that type of thing.
Oddly, this is different, but it's similar. Where Dunkirk, where
mm,
there's like three main groups, but each story gets roughly the same amount of time. But the group on the ground that's trying to load into those big ships, and then the boats in the water, and then the planes in the sky, they're all taking. It's almost like orders of magnitude in difference in like how in the duration of each one's story, but they all get the same amount of screen time. Like the planes get like 30 minutes of screen time, but it's only like really 3 minutes of action of what they do or some that sort of thing. Like, and then they all sort of meet together at the end of the movie.
mm.
But
Yeah, so
that's
it's a
different than
thing.
this, but it's kind of a similar.
Yeah. So and also there's some general symbolism going on in the storytelling where the movie itself is a progression of darkness to light, and each scene within the movie is a progression from darkness to light.
Mm.
And every scene is almost like a journey where there's kind of forward progression to kind of like an end point it's kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Does every
And
scene do all the scenes actually end literally lighter than they started?
yes,
Okay. I didn't
so
pick
it's
up
kind
on.
of fractal in its nature. It's every single scene starts out dark and gets lighter, and then the like if you could take like a color grading average of the colors over like every second of the movie, it would go from darker to lighter at the end of the movie. Like so the progressive scenes get lighter and lighter and lighter.
Okay, I think I was subconsciously noticing that, but I did not actually process that. Which, funnily enough, Roger Ebert, he had a bad review of the movie, and I only read one line from it, but he said something like "too many white screens."
Yeah. So it's doing weird stuff in the movie, like that a lot of movies don't typically do, but that's probably why I like it. But yeah, I could like at the beginning of the movie, like that first scene where they're like walking through the jungle and stuff, you can like barely see what's happening.
I thought that too. I was thinking, is this well? I was also watching it, just on my computer, and I mean, it's a nice screen, but I was wondering if it was a problem, with my screen.
You'd be
Or
well served with a big bright screen for sure.
yeah.
Watching this movie, it's definitely a visual spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's dark intentionally.
Okay, yeah. At first, I was wondering if there was an issue, but yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah. So anyway, that theme of darkness to light, kind of this yin yang type thing. I think maybe that fits into kind of the Tai Chi, because Tai Chi has kind of a similar uh, symbolism to it, in
Hmm.
that there's the soft side of things can actually be a yeah, like a martial art. So um, anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely kind of like a yin yang type symbolism to it. It's overtly Christian in that the first part of the movie is a Bible scripture. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah. It's from Genesis, right?
Hmm.
So Aronofsky he seems really interested in religion, just in general throughout his other movies. Um, he himself, he said, I looked at his Wikipedia, raised Jewish. He said like secular Jew or something like that. But do you know anything about his? Not that the beliefs, his beliefs necessarily uh, matter to the movie, but do you know anything about that?
Well, they do and they don't, right? So I'm definitely a firm believer in death of the author, in that it doesn't really matter what the author thinks. But that being said, um, yeah, he's secular, Jewish. Yeah, and in his Wikipedia it says he never like went to temple or studied the scriptures really. But he obviously has kind of like a deep knowledge of scripture and stuff. Like he does some deep cuts on his scriptural stuff at least. Um, and he seems to be interested in the Bible, especially the Old Testament. Um, and I mean, he made the movie Noah later
Yeah.
on, right? So he has an interest in it, and actually, so three of his movies are kind of explicitly biblical in nature. So it's The Fountain, Noah, and then Mother. And now, to the extent that what is his point in talking about religion, he seemed, from what I can tell, he is atheist or leans atheist or something like that. But he's obviously not lacking kind of a spiritual component or anything like that, because he seems to be thinking deeply about these themes. And
Mhm.
I think maybe thinking deeply about Genesis, specifically the Adam and Eve story down to Noah, you probably can get some good insights. Maybe that's just the thought in my mind, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, maybe thinking about Adam and Eve a lot is a one way of getting closer to truth. So yeah, and this story is kind of like an Adam and Eve story, right? So it's male female, kind of that
Mhm.
yin yang again.
Yeah, really
Uh,
really tiny cast for the movie.
right,
Other than some of those well, even with the conquistador storyline, there's really not that many people in this movie.
right. Yeah, the main characters are essentially just the two, which would be Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz, and then there's kind of a supporting cast, and a lot of the characters are kind of repeated in the different time periods, and so
Do the same
um,
people appear in other time periods, or just the two leads?
I think it's mainly just the two leads. There might be some overlap, though. I can't. I'm thinking, well, because the third time period, it's just Hugh Jackman,
Yeah, that's true.
and a tree represent that, and a ghost, Rachel Weisz, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe actually, before we get into more of it, um, the movie was actually going to be his big follow up to Requiem for a Dream,
Yeah.
and he had huge studio funding. It was going to be a big budget epic with like big battles and stuff like that.
Mm.
And so they were going to film in 2002 in Australia, and the actors attached to it was Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett.
Yeah.
And
Which
then,
oh yeah. Well,
you go ahead.
on that really quick. I saw that, and um maybe it's for the worst that he didn't get to make the big budget version that he wanted, but I can't it doesn't those two actors doesn't seem like the right fit, because I can't, like, a big part of this is like the main guy Thomas is played by Hugh Jackman.
Mhm.
He's a big wife guy. He's really in love with his wife, and I could not picture Brad Pitt having that same sort of, like, maybe at the time before we knew as much about Brad Pitt the person, but maybe at the time he could have pulled it off. But I can't picture him now, being that sort of, like, that sort of guy that's so in love with his wife. He doesn't seem like he as a person does not seem like someone who has that gear.
Yeah, I could see that. He's a good actor though.
Well, he's a great
But
actor, but Hugh Jackman just seems like a much more
yeah,
sentimental kind of guy.
yeah, and so I think though part of and it is, so when Brad Pitt basically dropped out a week before filming,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually don't know why specifically.
The Wikipedia said something about, like, script revisions that he wanted.
Yeah, and so
Maybe he wanted to be. He's like, I need this script. I need to appear like less of a simp.
yeah, maybe that's what he said. He's like, I want
And
to
Aronofsky's
wear
like,
some
no, this is
armor and stab people.
yeah. And Aronofsky's like, no, this is a simp movie. So no.
It's not a simp movie. Okay, it kind of is. It's
I'm not.
overcoming being a simp. That's what it is, actually.
Yeah, I won't say it's a simp movie or not, but the guy,
Yeah.
he goes crazy trying to prevent his wife from dying.
Yes. Yes. But anyway, that's what ended the first version of the film, which was actually called The Last Man. And so basically what Aronofsky did, because supposedly this was kind of like his baby, and in one interview it's like this was the film he was wanting to make, like, and why he made all the other films leading up to this one. And so he basically decided to go indie essentially and kind of cut the budget in half,
Mm-hmm.
and then restarted in 2004, started filming in Canada.
I
And
think he got the better actors that fit better for at least my maybe I don't know the other vision he had, but if you told me like what the story was going to be, I think the actors he ended up with are better fits.
well, and he was married to Rachel Weisz at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Those two are married?
they were married from 2001 to 2010.
Oh, I did not know that.
That explains some things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
If only he had found the fountain of marital endurance.
Yeah, if only. Yeah, which I had a crush on her back in that time period after the Mummy and Mummy 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think in that time period that's a very defensible crush.
Yes. But yeah, so anyway, so yeah, it essentially became like an indie film at that point. So it was like very small released, like it wasn't released everywhere, and it was kind of also panned by critics. Are we gonna do the guessing game? I haven't looked.
Oh, I wasn't necessarily going to do it, but let's do it because you didn't look. I wasn't going to do it because I figured you just knew it because it
Well, I
was.
kind of know that it's
Yeah, you knew it
somewhat
wasn't
mixed.
low.
I
Yeah.
think it's like right at 50%, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it was 52
I haven't like
when I
looked
looked.
recently.
I myself didn't look, and then I was going to watch it and then give it a score after, and my guess was 60, and I think it was at 52.
Okay. So yeah, so very divisive, but it does kind of have a cult following. There's a lot of people
74 on the fans.
Mm-hmm. But I've met people. I've tried to show it to people, and they just hate it, which I understand. But I disagree.
I certainly didn't hate it. I think I was telling you the first like 3/4. I didn't really like it the first 3/4. I mean, I didn't dislike it though either. It wasn't like offensive to me or bad or actively bad. It was just I wasn't really getting. I had a hard time getting into it. But then the end, for reasons I can't even articulate really why, but I did think the end was like powerful. So I think it got to a place where it tipped it into a positive, a positive side of the ledger for me.
Okay, well that's good. I don't know what else should we talk about. I've got a lot to say still, but I don't know where to go.
Okay, I think I probably derailed us some point there, but I think you were talking about the pre-production, about how they had the other people that were lined up to do it.
Yeah. So basically, it went off a few years later. So that's why there's such like a gap in Aronofsky's kind of filmography, because there, I believe it was Pi, then Requiem for a Dream, which was what, 2001 or 99?
I can look it up, but I want to say 2001.
2000. So yeah, and then he didn't do a film for 6 years. And so it was kind of like what happened, right? And that's what happened. And so so yeah, but then I also kind of want because I think this also ended up kind of influencing his future choices, like doing the wrestler and stuff like that, because which ended up kind of catapulting him once again. Because the wrestler came out right after this in 2008, and was once again kind of a low budget um, indie film, right? But
Yeah, that one was a bigger hit, right? That one,
that critically and commercially, yes, a bigger hit.
yeah. Didn't it win Best Picture, or was it?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it won. I wasn't in America at the time, but
Mhm.
um, what's interesting about it though is the wrestler is a totally different film, totally grounded in reality, almost hyper real. I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, not to talk about the wrestler too much, but um, and also if we go forward another 2 years into Black Swan, you see kind of similar storytelling stuff in it, where especially those two, the endings are quite ambiguous.
Mhm.
Where in the wrestler, you don't know if he dies or lives, and then spoiler alert. And in Black Swan, you don't know if she was crazy or not, and
Yeah.
you're kind of left to think about it yourself, right?
Mhm.
And so in the fountain, you've got the same kind of dilemma, right? Where is this a story or is this real? Is this like some kind of memory or second life? Is this about reincarnation? I think there are some like Eastern religious themes in the movie, and as mentioned, the Tai Chi that's there. But there's a lot of yin yang. There's a lot of kind of death, the cycle of samsara, you might say, of
Mhm.
birth, death, and rebirth. Um, but yeah, say I kind of want to pause for a second. Any thoughts on that?
Maybe yeah, again, possibly too being too literal brained, but it's like, why have all these different philosophies and not, it doesn't seem to explore any given one of them too far, but just sort of some of the service level ideas from a bunch of different ones.
Okay, so one part of that is this is the fountain. It's about the fountain of youth or
Yeah.
the tree of life, right?
Yeah, and I saw an interview where he was talking about sort of Aronofsky's talking about, like, he's like, every culture has this, every culture has some
Right.
version of this story.
and
So,
and
and
it
so maybe
always
he's doing,
involves water is one
yeah,
thing that he
water
said.
and food or something.
Hmm. I think that's part of it, is he wanted to kind of show off the idea of, maybe there's kind of something to this uh fountain of youth type thing, because it's called the fountain. There's not really a fountain in it. There's a tree.
Yeah,
um
I was actually almost scared to bring it up. I was going to say, I must have missed the part with the running water.
at the end of the conquistador story,
Yeah, okay, I remember that now.
there's a fountain in front of the tree of life.
Yeah. Well, I guess, was it a pool or a fountain? Not that it matters. I mean, a pool can
Well,
be a
I
fountain,
think
but
in the sense of this film, it was supposed to be
yeah,
a fountain, but yeah, not like a running fountain necessarily.
yeah, not one that you'd see at Mar-a-Lago.
Correct. um, but yeah, so I think there's that to it, but this obviously is critical of the Catholic Church.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, tell me more.
yeah, so this Noah and the mother could all be seen as critiques of religion, right? So explicit. Well, so another symbolic through line of this movie is each time period, there's a threat to the woman, and the threat has something to do with cancer, right? And
Hmm.
so in the modern day, she literally has brain cancer, and then in the conquistador period, um, it's the Inquisition, and the church, this bad priest from the Catholic Church um, is trying to take over Spain and take it from the Queen, who is the love interest in that period.
Yeah,
And it's actually said that the cancer is spreading of this priest's control over Spain.
mm,
And so that's the cancer in that period, and essentially, like, there's this threat to the queen, and the only way to save her is to get to the fountain of youth and bring it back, and so she can live forever. And then in the future time, the woman is a tree, and the cancer is actually himself, where he has to eat the tree to stay alive, because the tree is from the seed from the tree of life down in the conquistador period.
mm-hmm.
And
Okay. Yeah, I didn't.
yeah,
That last one. Yeah, I did not put that together.
it's the tree that's planted over her grave.
Well, I understand. Yeah, I knew that, but I didn't realize. I didn't quite process it. You know how he's killing the tree. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, because he's eating the tree to stay alive,
Mm-hmm.
and each time he takes from the tree, it's essentially killing her, and yeah. So it's an interesting symbolism there, but the critique of the Catholic Church is definitely there, and the priest is shown as this maniacal, bloodthirsty guy. He's doing self-flagellation, and there's just blood, and they're like hanging people upside down and killing everyone, and so yeah, not looking favorably upon organized religion. The one thing I can say is he does seem to have somewhat of a problem with the Catholic Church. And I don't know what that's from necessarily, but Noah, not so much, other than Noah himself is kind of portrayed as a madman, and it's kind of like, why would you follow a religious person? Because they're crazy. And then, although if that's the take you got out of Noah, you did it wrong. But
I haven't seen it yet, but I and we had talked in the past about some other biblical prophets and stuff, and how they would almost most of the time they would appear like madmen.
yes, and that's the cool part of Noah is he does seem crazy, and he himself is not even sure that the flood is going to happen, or that what he's doing is right, and that's kind of the interesting kind of dilemma of the movie. But anyway,
Well, that actually
yeah,
reminds me of I haven't sat with it long enough to have a really developed thinking about it, but in the fountain, Jackman he's definitely comes across as a madman to his colleagues, and even to the woman, and I'm kind of wondering what the like archetypes or symbols are there between him and her, the interplay between him and her, because she is very calm, and she has accepted her fate and has this confidence. If I followed it correctly, she already sort of like knew about eternal life, and she was hoping he would get there too, like that maybe in his more masculine logical science brain or something. But so he's kind of like he's losing it throughout a lot of this movie, and then
right, there's a progression from a normal guy to a madman.
Yeah, but she's always very like self-assured, or she's always assured. She always sort of knows where she stands.
So yeah, and so what it is, and another theme of the movie is essentially accepting death. So she's accepted death, integrated it into her being. So she's not afraid of it. She's facing it head on. Whereas he's extremely fearful at the beginning. He's willing to do anything to stop death. And it's actually not until the end of the movie, the climax of the movie, where he finally accepts death, that he's reunited. Supposedly, you don't really see it, but the idea would be that upon accepting death as a part of life, which is kind of what she learns from reading up on native cultures of the Maya, that death is the road to awe, or whatever. That once he finally accepts death, that's the time when he's actually kind of reunited with her, or not necessarily in the movie, but that's kind of the idea.
Yeah. What's going on when he in that at that point where he I guess it's I guess it's this part you're talking about. He accepts death, and then it's like back to the conquistador era where he's with that I don't know if it's a tribal chief or shaman or whatever, and he's
It's
kind
a
of like,
cherubim, is what it is,
oh,
and a
okay, so that
flaming sword.
yeah, yeah, the flaming sword I intended to bring up, but okay, so that guy, he's sort of Jackman's doing like that like airbender thing or whatever.
It was
He's
before Airbender though. But yeah,
okay.
yeah. So that's kind of the interesting part of the movie is where the future stories impact the past stories, like in a real sense.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't remember what he calls him, but he's like, I didn't recognize you, sort of
First
thing.
father.
Oh, okay, first father.
Yeah. So because it was supposedly the first father had a tree grow out of his stomach, and that's what the earth was. And
Yeah,
that tree is supposedly the tree of life in that culture.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so right as he's about to be killed with the flaming sword, he's already been stabbed. That's when the future guy reaches Shabalba, or the star that represents the underworld for Mayan cultures, or essentially like heaven, I guess you could call it. Um, and then he gets like the chief sees a vision of the future man doing his meditative Tai Chi golden man pose, and decides not to kill him and let him pass. And also more symbolism. Uh, every scene is almost like a birth canal. So like that scene especially that goes through, there's kind of all this blood in that
I,
chamber.
yeah, I was wondering about that. Yeah, I kind of noticed that, but I was wondering.
Hmm. And so then he comes out into you can see kind of everywhere, and also he goes through into the light, and so he's kind of reborn, I guess you would say. And then he goes and finds the tree and starts drinking some sap, which is very white and oozy or whatever. And then but yeah, then he ends up essentially the wound that he got from the stab, the flowers start coming out of it. So yeah.
So, um, so I think uh, I need to watch it again because
It's definitely a multi-watcher.
yeah, I need to watch it again, especially now having done a little more research. I intentionally went in knowing nothing. Just wanted to have that blank experience. But now I need to watch it again, knowing quite a bit more.
Well, and also it helps to know each of the stories and how they end at the beginning,
Yeah,
as well. So like, yeah, watching it again kind of changes it, because you're not just left in total confusion of like, who's this guy? Why do they look the same? Is this real? Is that not real? Which are not really the right questions to be asking when you're watching it.
yeah.
But yeah.
There's a lot of there's also a lot. I knew it at the time what they were doing, but I wasn't mentally keeping up. I mean, I wasn't maybe trying very hard, but at the time, I knew they were using a lot of visual cues to say, something like the tattoo on the ring finger,
Uh-huh.
to say like this is the same guy and this isn't the same guy, sort of things. Like it was like, um, but I know that I suspect there's numerous that I didn't pick up on.
Yeah, and so you had said you watched like a fountain explainer prior to recording, and I was like, no, don't. Mainly because every single fountain explainer I've seen tries to explain concretely, okay, this is real, this is not real. He's obviously the same guy because of this, and he built this bubble spaceship out of this technology. And like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like
Yeah,
that's not the point of the movie. It's not like you can kind of come to your own interpretation of what it means and whether it's a good or bad or whatever. But like, yeah, it's not about like, okay, well, is the conquistador thing real or not? Personally, I just say all three are real. Makes the most sense to me. Like if I was pressed to ask, but
Mhm.
you could say yes, the one is just the book, and you could even say that the future is him finishing the book, but then like that doesn't really make sense either. But um,
Yeah.
and the movie doesn't say that. So like for you to think that, that's just drawing your own conclusions.
Hmm. Yeah, I will say that the explainer I saw was not. It was more philosophically concerned, so
Okay.
it wasn't. They did point out the visual cues, just saying like uh, that the foreshadowing and things like that, but they didn't try too hard to like nail down the actual plot points or anything.
Okay, because yeah, I mean it's my favorite movie, so I've like tried to find other people talking about it, but usually the discourse is like, okay, well, so this is real and this is not real, and and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
this is not what I wanted.
So what's I mean you've already said this, but if you were to sum it up, it's your favorite movie. Why? Like, what is it? What is it?
Well, first of all, it came out in 2006. No,
Yeah.
although that probably does have something to do with it. Um, so for me, I have movies that I get cravings for, and this is one of them that I just have to watch every once in a while.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm definitely more partial to kind of um, uh, beautiful movies and
Yeah.
movies that are very interesting visually. And I also really like kind of unique stories, right? Like, what IP is this based on? You know what I mean?
The Bible.
Right. And
There.
also, I really like religious stories. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, and then that I think the actors do a great job in this. We haven't gone into everything, but the Clint Mansell soundtrack is kind of uh, probably more popular than the film itself in ways. Um, it was kind of a big one,
Hmm.
and it's been reused in other movies, which is weird. I can't remember
Really,
which, but it has been.
I've seen a few instances of that happening, but not many.
Yeah, and so the soundtrack is great. Um, and then not the soundtrack, not the acting, but the
Well, you're talking about the visuals, and that's something
yeah.
I wanted to touch on. I think I said to you that it felt like the movie was taking place in Photoshop. I
And
didn't.
I'm blaming your computer on this, but yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, I don't mean that. I didn't even mean that as a criticism. Just that there was a, for lack of a better word, I'll say like surrealist.
Yes.
Um, like you're not.
Well,
It's
and
not. It doesn't look like real life, which is not a bad thing. It's just, um, but it looked. I think you told me that it wasn't really CGI, but so I don't know. I don't know enough technically about how movies are made, but um, I am wondering how it was made because if it wasn't CGI, how are they doing that?
yeah. So like CGI would be like Jar Jar Binks, right? Is totally made in a computer,
Yeah.
right? There's not an actual actor. Well, there was a stand-in, but there's not like any
Yeah.
film of Jar Jar Binks.
Not, I mean,
So
not that you have. I know where this film is.
you know
I've
where
seen,
the
I've
the
seen it.
Gungans live.
Yeah, I've seen it. I can't tell you that much more, but
But so the only well, you tell me, like, mainly the outer space stuff, or are you thinking
yeah, the outer space stuff. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, mainly that because it looks like it's sort of like well, and again, not a criticism, but it reminds me of like a lot of children's books and things like the artwork in certain children's books.
Okay,
Um,
so the tree was real, right? The bubble would be CG though, I guess. So like the bubble is CG, right?
mhm.
But like other than that, which there's not much to the bubble, right? It's a transparent bubble. Um, but the all the outer space stuff is macro photography. It's molecules and chemical reactions being filmed super close up.
Oh, okay, and then they're
So
just
yeah, and then
overlaying other.
they're just overlaying the film, compositing it together. So there's actually like no like CG elements to any of it, other than the computer being involved in in compositing, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, so like the nebula and everything that's happening in outer space is all macro photography, chemical reactions lit from behind and stuff, like on a microscope,
Okay, interesting.
which goes back to kind of the cancer theme in the whole thing. And then apparently the co-writer was one of his friends who had just gotten a degree in neuroscience.
Hmm. Oh, I had a question. I guess the it's kind of weird because they're in the, we'll call it present day, which
Hmm.
I was watching a short little like behind the scenes thing, and the one of the like the crew guys, he said something like, "Oh, we just wrapped up with the present." Like so I think he means, the set and the costuming for the present day.
Uh-huh.
Like we're done with that period. So that was just interesting to me because it's like when you work on a film, just the technical aspects of shooting the film are going to give away, like if you were a crew member working on that, watching this, you would know little things just just by, like logistics, like of how things were filmed, when they were filmed, what they were referred to on the set. You would know things about the movie that the normal viewer couldn't know.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
but I was curious about so he's working in this lab with like monkeys, and which
Hmm.
I don't even think monkeys have come up yet, but he's working with these monkeys, and his wife is she's receiving like hospice care at his lab. Was that correct? Or
I think his lab is at a hospital.
okay.
So he's got like a research lab at a hospital.
But it
And
also looked like it was just the set was interesting because it obviously didn't look like a hospital. It looked like
right. And I think part of that goes to also the set design in general, where everything was built to be like a tunnel going from dark to light. And
true. Yeah.
also everything was lit to look as if there were kind of like stars around. So
Yeah.
like if you go back to the conquistador period, there's all these candles hung in like different heights in like the corridor leading to the queen.
Hmm.
So it kind of looks like you're almost walking through outer space with those
Yeah.
candles in the background. And then you see kind of the same details in the present day where there's kind of all these different little lights everywhere, um, kind of giving this kind of outer space feel. So it's designed intentionally, the hospital, yeah. So it doesn't look like a normal hospital, but um, yeah, I mean, it could be near future because they're doing immortality research on monkeys, but it's essentially like the movie and the theme of the movie as well is kind of past, present, future, and
Hmm.
so that's kind of what's happening.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I like that monkey in the box. That was a cute monkey. Um,
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you, just because I know, like at the beginning, they're like doing a surgery and they're talking about we're losing him, and then they reveal it's a monkey. Did that trick you at all?
oh
Or
yeah, yeah, it did. I didn't know. But then they were also talking about like uh, I think they said like now we have to put him down or something, and I was like, oh, that's yeah, maybe I guess that does happen sometimes in surgery. You just have to kill the patient because you screwed up. But they were talking about a monkey, so
that's funny.
uh, so okay. Other than the two main characters, I already have an answer for this. But other than the two main characters, who's your MVP?
Like the other actors and stuff.
Yeah.
The evil priest is good, and the non-evil priest is good. Um, the I feel like
Oh, the non-evil priest is Hector Salamanca, right, from Breaking Bad.
yes he
Yeah.
is, and walking around and talking no problem and not ringing a bell. Yeah, I don't know. What's your answer?
Oh, I gotta go with Ethan Suplee.
Yes, he did good too.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
that. I think that was Ethan Suplee at like 250.
Hmm.
He would later probably go to 400, and now he's down to like 190.
Yeah, yeah, very epic. Pre My Name Is Earl.
Yeah, pre running into Jim Cav, whatever how you say his name, Caviezel, on
Mhm.
a plane, telling him he was going to hell for being fat.
Is that what happened?
Yeah. So yeah, he got huge.
Yeah.
He was like over 400 pounds probably, and he was on this flight uh, with Caviezel. I don't know how you say his name, but and Caviezel comes up to him and he's like, uh, they didn't know each other, right? And they weren't working together or anything. They just both happened to be in first class on this flight, and he comes up to him and he's like, bro, the way you carry yourself, the way you appear, you look like you're in hell. You're committing yourself to live in hell. And Caviezel, I guess, is like he's devout something. I think Catholic. Because he was in
Yeah, he was
Passion.
Jesus.
Yeah, and he's just like I try to emulate Jesus, and Jesus would not have you living like that. And that's like the turning point for Suppley. It's a crazy
Wow.
story. Yeah, and they're not like buds now or anything. He said he was kind of offended, but also just like no one had ever told him straight up to his face that he needed to change.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can Google it. It's a funny story or crazy story.
So it does work. No,
Oh, yeah. I mean, for some people, I think it certainly does.
that's interesting. Yeah, he was good in it. The lady doctor, I feel like does a good job being a lady doctor.
Yeah, she does one of my favorite things in movies. She does like the "you're out of control" scene.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good scene. Um, I realize we didn't do the plot. I don't know if we need to. Just go watch
I don't
it.
think you need to because
Yeah,
the plot could be summarized in like a couple sentences. Really, it's just guy trying to
save his wife from dying, and then she dies,
yeah. It's more
and
about
then he goes into a space bubble tree. That old plot.
yeah.
Yeah, and but yeah, so yeah, I think the macro photography element of it is cool. I like, and so there's kind of like maybe some Illuminati stuff going on there with as above so below type stuff, but so maybe it's just Illuminati, I don't know, but and then there's also the shots that start out upside down and then flip over really fast. I don't know if you remember those shots.
Yeah, that was cool. The one on I think it was on a bridge with a car.
The bridge with a car and then a guy on a horse, and then they do it with the space bubble.
Yeah, I thought it looked really cool.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's kind of this forward momentum as well in every scene. Like it's never stopping moving, which I think is kind of a commentary maybe on aging and death in general.
Mm,
Like you're always moving forward to the inevitable fate,
yeah,
like no matter what you do.
yeah. Well, so I mean, you say you've like recommended this to lots of people, or at least tried to talk to people about it, and most don't necessarily connect with it. So who would you recommend this for?
Well, everyone should watch it because it's my favorite movie. But yeah, if you don't like, there are some people like my brother who do not like movies who don't tell you what to think.
Yeah,
You know, so if you like when a movie is very clear on what the message and the moral and the plot is, don't watch this because it's not clear on any of that stuff. But if you tend to like, I would say that to me, Aronofsky is a step up from we mentioned him earlier. What's the other director guy?
mm,
Sorry, Nolan, Christopher Nolan.
okay.
So kind of if you're into Christopher Nolan and you like thinking you're a deep guy, watch some Aronofsky movies. All right, do yourself a favor. Not that Nolan is not deep and he doesn't, because he does this as well, right? Like Nolan has very similar things, and Memento is great. But like it's very like ambiguous kind of what's going on, and Interstellar, oh. But to me, he's like kind of like the popcorn version of Darren Aronofsky. Like if you want to go eat some popcorn and just chill and maybe get a little deep, that's where you go. But Aronofsky is where you're really diving in. But yeah, I would say anyone who's a Nolan fan would probably have a chance at liking this.
Hmm.
But not if you just like Christopher Nolan big budget spinning hallway stuff.
I can't speak to it because this is well, maybe I've seen enough. I mean, I guess I saw Requiem, but way back, like when it came out. I was too young to see it, and we'll probably never see it again. And then I saw Black Swan, but I think these three now are the only ones I've seen.
Black Swan is good. Yeah, but they're not the same in a lot of ways, but in the sense that they kind of do these kind of slightly bigger budget, more cerebral, think about it movies, you know. But to me, like for instance, Inception is very like, oh, but did the top fall over at the end or did it not? Like it's kind of like it really sets you up to be like, well, is it real or not real? Whereas I feel like Aronofsky kind of trusts the audience a little bit more, where he's just not going to tell you anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this movie actually did a few times remind me of Interstellar because of the space stuff and the intergenerational aspect of like the time span and family dynamics and stuff like that, or like motivation for love of family. So they did remind me a little bit of that.
Yes. But yeah, and so but yeah, to me also the interesting thing is with the Fountain on that note, and is it a simp movie or not a simp movie? Because like in a way he is a simp, but also he's like neglecting her for the sake of trying to like save her life.
Oh, and yeah, they touch on that a few times. Like they beat you over the head almost with it, where he like four or five times he very, very distinctly rejects opportunities to spend time with her so he can focus.
Right, so he can focus on finding something that will cause death to not happen. Right, and basically like that's the sin of the character, right? That's his biggest dilemma, is he's so attached to living forever that he's unwilling to accept death. And I guess I don't know how much we get into religion on this Granite Mountain podcast, but that's kind of like seeing death as part of the plan of salvation, as part of the road to awe, is kind of a big part of our religion. And so that's kind of like one reason why it really like resonated with me, because like I had never like watched a movie that kind of, I felt like, hey, this guy kind of gets it,
Yeah.
On kind of a theological level, at least when it comes to like death and rebirth and that type of stuff. But so basically, and also there's stars that you can actually go to and stuff. So I guess that's part of our religion too. But
well, again, actually, Interstellar was another one that kind of, and maybe that's something we could do sometime. So like a crypto Mormon films are unintentionally bolster our unique doctrine.
Mad Max Fury Road too. No.
Oh, you'll have to tell me you have to build the case for that one, because I don't know.
It's not really, but Book of Eli is, but yeah.
Yeah, I had some others. I can't remember them, but yeah, maybe we'll workshop that one and
yeah, we should do that. We could do Book of Eli. We could do Interstellar.
Yeah.
Preview. But yeah, and I think, not to upset any of our viewers out there who may be Catholic, but I think to a certain extent some of it comes from a critique of Catholicism, in that kind of the same critiques that people have are kind of similar critiques that we may have as members of the church.
Yeah.
But yeah, not that there's anything wrong with Catholicism, but
yeah, well, they were kind of the only game in town for a while, so that's kind of what I was thinking about at the beginning, where if Aronofsky has, I guess I wouldn't call it anti-Catholic, but if he's got like that streak in him of wanting to talk about Catholic stuff, sometimes that's sometimes Catholicism is a stand-in just for Christianity generally.
Right, right. And like I said, who knows what he's thinking, but yeah, unintentionally he kind of stumbles upon kind of death being integral to eternal life, which, it's I feel like that theme is not done often, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a big theme, but I don't even know another movie that talks about eternal life that much.
Yeah,
But
let's do some research on that. And if, by the way, I mean, not a ton of people have been tuning into these shows, which is to be expected.
no, I know.
Um, but we get. I mean, I don't know how many people would listen to the whole thing or whatever. But if you are someone listening to this and definitely leave comments or send me messages or whatever, because it's just nice to know that people thought it was interesting or that they were listening. And if they just know something that we don't know, then I'd love to be corrected or just learn more.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Oh, there's something I needed to clarify, because I may have, anyone listening, I may have confused them earlier when you were talking about Rachel Weisz being in a relationship. I thought you were talking about with Hugh Jackman. I realized later you're talking about
oh
with
no,
Aronofsky.
Aronofsky.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't clarify that. But
Well,
yeah,
it was it was probably obvious, but I was for some reason thinking the two actors, and yeah, I guess she has a kid with Aronofsky. So
yeah, I don't know, probably, but
I think I pulled up her Wikipedia just incidentally, and it said something about that. Now she's with Daniel Craig.
that's right, that's right.
I didn't know that.
She cragged it up,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess who else should watch it would be Simps should watch it.
Well, on the topic of it being a simp film, I would just, um, you know, it's like a fellas, is it gay to love your wife moment? It's like, I mean, it's not a simp film, of course. It is totally okay to search for eternal life on behalf of your wife. That's not a bad thing to do.
It's like a quest, right? Like
Yeah.
especially in the first one, he's like on this quest to save the woman, which I feel like is, you could categorize that as being a simp, but it's kind of like a universal story.
Actually, it's very toxic. The toxic need for men to save women.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, yeah, that's one of the oldest stories that there is.
I
Saving a
wonder. I wonder
princess.
how many listicles were inspired by uh, the fountain.
Probably not that many.
How these 10 gifts from the fountain perfectly explain.
Yeah, the fountain gif of him reaching Shibalba and kind of having this amazed face has been used a lot. For
Oh,
sure.
has it?
Yeah,
I'll start noticing it now, but I didn't notice it already.
yeah, just kind of being like amazed by something. You throw that gif on him, or ironically amazed by something. Um, but yeah, but yeah, like I said, the disease, like the problem that he has is he can't accept death, and so realizing that like artificially prolonging his life is actually like delaying the inevitable, and also just making him be away from the woman for longer. And
Mm.
so he actually kind of has to accept his own death to move forward.
And on that, this little interview I was watching with Hugh Jackman, he was talking about filming this movie. He intentionally didn't. It was going to make him be away from his family for a few months, but he could have like brought them with him, because he's a rich guy, I guess. You can
Uh-huh.
bring your family wherever you go, but he intentionally, worked on this movie alone because he didn't want, like, he thought it would have been like, it's something like it would have been too hard at the end of every day to like then have to switch back into like family. I guess he wanted to preserve that feeling of being isolated.
Yeah, and he actually did a lot of his own stunts too. So like there's a lot of wire work in the zero gravity tree spaceship,
No, yeah.
and he did a lot of that stuff and like trained for Tai Chi and stuff. So
Yeah, accomplished guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it went from X-Men to this, basically.
Oh, really? Yeah, that
Mhm.
makes sense. All right, cool. I think I'm out of stuff to say, but this was
But yeah,
illuminating.
go watch it, and if you don't like it, you're an idiot.
if if this was too hard for you to enjoy, just go watch the really bad movies made by that really bad guy, Christopher Nolan.
No, I like Nolan. I
I know.
like Nolan.
I
I'm
just
just saying, I had a friend who his favorite filmmaker was Nolan, and I'm like, and he thought it was like the deepest of the deep, and I'm like, it's not that deep. Like it's fairly simple. Like Memento's pretty deep, I feel like, but like uh since then he's kind of just, he's got his little twists and turns and stuff. It's well, specifically I had gotten home from my mission right before Inception came out, so I was a big movie guy before my mission, and so I get home and Inception comes out and everyone's like, it'll blow your mind, it'll be the craziest movie you've ever seen. And like, keep in mind, was a big fan of The Fountain already, and like, I had seen Memento, I had seen like a bunch of crazy um, indie movies and stuff
yeah,
like that
your mind had
at
already
this
been
point.
blown.
And then I go to Inception, and I'm like waiting for my mind to be blown, and what I realized is they just thought the 4 layers was really complex, and I was
Yeah.
like, it's just 4 layers. Like, it's not that complex. It's fairly linear in its storytelling. Like, there's nothing really that crazy here. So I like kept waiting for my mind to be blown, and it just wasn't.
Yeah.